We're so eager to change the world. But what we fail to realize is that the world is simply made up of countries, states, cities, communities, families, and individuals. So if we truly want to change the world, let's start by becoming our true selves.
Welcome back to The Treatment. Thank you for joining us live. We appreciate you guys. Please go share, comment, subscribe. I am your co-host, Dr. Lolita Brown, and this is
Dr. Van Brown.
And we are so excited about today's topic. Our topic today is, why did I get married? This is really deep. I feel like we gotta kind of dive in it very slowly for some folks, but we're gonna be talking about, we first wanna talk about the reasons why people get married. Right, hon?
Well, go ahead, you wanna give them some?
Okay, I'm gonna be transparent and honest. I think that one of the reasons I think people get married is for sexual reasons. You know, like maybe they feel that they want to be in rightful standing, you know, with the law or their beliefs or whatnot. And so they get married because they want to, you know, kind of continue a good covenant with God and their spouse. I also think that, and this is for more maybe some of the ladies, you know, out of desperation.
Right, but let's not go through those lists so quick.
Okay.
So you said sometimes they get married for sexual desires simply because, especially if you're coming from a religious or spiritual standpoint, we know because not everyone subscribes to those religion and rules and regulations, but the people that do, they feel a sense of condemnation.
Yes.
And because they feel a sense of condemnation, even though they know secretly in their heart, this is not the person that they want to be married to. They're not compatible. They're not equally yoked. There's a lot of things that are missing that identify that this person should be someone worthy of being married. But because of the deep yearning of that sexual desire, they prefer to walk down the altar just so in their minds they won't live a life of a sinful life.
Yes.
Am I explaining that correct?
Very good, clear, very clear.
All right, so that's totally understandable. And because of that strong sense of sexual desire, we find ourselves making decisions purely from a place of lust and not from a place of truth. And because we're not truthful, all of our decisions, therefore, will end in error. So we're going to go through all of the ways and how we can correct those things, but we first have to identify the problem.
Yes.
We have to identify why do we do what we do. Another reason that people get married is for loneliness, a sense of desperation. We've hit a certain age, and societal pressure is telling us that, especially for women at a certain age, that we should be married at this point. And the parents and family members they don't have the greatest wisdom, and they ask uncomfortable questions to the women about this particular thing, and they fail to realize that everyone has their own unique journey.
Yes.
But for some reason, we view the individual from the eyes of the cultural and societal standpoint.
And I think too, for a lot of women, not only is it, their biological clock ticking in that way,
Right.
but it's looks, it's the pure pressure of people around you.
Right.
I remember counseling a few young women, and they were in their late 20s going into their 30s, and a lot of their friends had already been married,
Right.
working or on having their first child or having their second child, and they felt left behind. They felt that, even for me personally, my own personal story, a lot of my friends that I grew up with, they were married and on their second and third child
Right.
by the time I ended up getting married,
Right.
And so there was even that like thought in my head at a certain point, like, okay, what's wrong with me, or what,
Right.
time is running out for me, or
Right.
not, And so I know that some of our viewers can relate to that, having that thought where they're around, whether it's family members or friends or things like that, but whether it's because of your biological clock, or whether it's because of your age and your look, or whether it's just...
You've been a bridesmaid for 8 times.
Yes.
And you're tired of
Yes.
going to these weddings and getting the flower, and so there's this constant pressure, especially for women,
Yes.
to be chosen, and so it creates unhealthy feelings, and because of those unhealthy feelings, we therefore make unhealthy decisions. But we want to go through all of this list because the goal of this movement is to is to actually reveal wisdom
Yes.
and understanding on there is a spiritual standard on how we're supposed to love and give and behave and move. And
Amen.
if we violate those principles, then we shouldn't be shocked of the outcome. So let's go a little further into some of the ways why we choose. Why did I get married? So we talk about sexual desires.
Yes.
We talk about a perfect one, arranged marriages.
Yes.
It's not even your decision. Also, even in the Asian culture, at a certain age, if you're not married, they look at you real crazy because
Yeah,
having
culture.
from a lot of friends culturally, especially a friend of mine, she's from the Korean culture, and she recently got married, but she was constantly almost overwhelmed about the constant things that her parents and family members were saying about her, and arranged marriages that still happens in Africa and parts of India,
Yeah.
where you don't even have any say-so. Because of the bloodline and the cultural and financial families, they choose the best suited families and then their children in order to keep that generational wealth going. So the kids have
Yes.
no say-so
Wow.
in the matter. And this is just the way, their cultural way of doing things. Is it right or wrong?
Even in some cultures, like it's against going outside their beliefs or their religion or their race.
Oh, race?
You
Yes.
know? So
Right.
I've had people that we've counseled, or we've had people that we counsel where that was an issue, that
Right.
one side of the family didn't accept the other because, they were from different, backgrounds
Right.
and things like that. So yeah, you're right.
What is another? So also people get married for financial gain.
Yes.
They're not particularly in love with the person, but they see they've had a hard life and the challenges, they don't particularly have a career path or something that's set in stone that would guarantee finances. And so here it is, someone who's willing to love them and take care of them. They're not enamored with the individual, but they love security. And one of the deepest desires of a woman is security.
Yes.
So sometimes women make what I would say is a decision that is not their first choice. And because it's not their first choice, it shows up in the rest of their lives. Even though they're living with all of the lavishness of this life, the house, the cars, the children, and not having to worry about bills. But there's something about there's only so much vacations you can take.
Yeah.
where you get to the point and you realize, wow, this is not what I thought it would be cracked up to be.
Yeah. I feel like too, from knowing people that have like really experienced that decided that they were going to go for an NBA player or, you know, someone with a celebrity
And this
status.
is for men too. Men also do this too, and choose because of financial gain.
Yeah.
It's on both sides.
Yes.
Continue. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay. But just knowing people that have done that and realizing, you know, that, and not, this isn't for everybody, but some cases more than others, like they live a miserable life. You know, that person isn't faithful to them, or they don't really invest in the marriage or care. You know, it's like they're the trophy wife or husband,
Right.
you know, in the situation. And so even seeing that, and that being exposed to like why someone might get married for all the wrong reasons
Right.
versus, you know, why they should get married. And so another one I want to talk about, which might be, you know, a difficult one for some people, but getting married because of pregnancy, you know?
No, yeah, because that's correct. Because you guys dated, you met somewhere, and you were instantly attracted to each other. You're dating casually. You have no intentions of being serious or taking it all the way.
Yeah.
But now, you know, you got the news that you're pregnant, and now you want to do the right thing. Simply because you're both, even though you're both consenting adults, but you're aware of what it does to a child when there's no consistency and a home for a child. And so you try to make the best decision simply because you don't want the child to end up in a place where there's a deficit. So now we're walking down the aisle, not because of love, but because of something that's growing inside of you.
Yes, yes.
These are so many persons all over the world making decisions that were not naturally born out of all of the healthy reasons why. And the reason why I'm saying this, we're going down this list because spiritually speaking, there is a right reason on why you should get married. And we're going to explain all of that right after we come back after this break. Stay tuned, please.
My name is Anisha. I am 28 years old and I live in Marina Del Rey, California. So I was healed from dermatitis and eczema. It started around 2019. I was working a job that took a lot out of me. So the doctors told me that because of my high stress levels, I had developed dermatitis and eczema because I did have a really bad breakout all over my body. But once that subsided, it kind of centralized to my foot. And then I just had this persistent thing on my left foot all the time. And I actually went to Healed Conference last year. And once I left, within a month, my foot completely cleared up, which was mind-blowing for me because I had been dealing with it for a while. But when you give it to God, just know that He will take care of it, and you don't have to do it yourself. You really don't.
We are back, and I know you guys were on the edge of your seat waiting because this is a hot topic. So we've kind of gone over all of the reasons why people get married. You know,
Yes.
a sense of loneliness, cultural and societal pressure, money, loneliness. What is the other one?
Sex.
Sex. And so,
See.
how do we forget that one? Oh, yeah, intimacy. Yeah, also a sense of loneliness. And so now we're going to dive into the diagnosis on why we do those things.
Yes.
But before we do, let's go from a scripture standpoint. I want to further drive home the point of what we're trying to make here. Genesis 2:23-24. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of the man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh." Wow. Let me repeat that again, please. Genesis 2:23-24. And Adam said, now this is Adam speaking, the first man that was ever created. "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of a man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh." Notice in this chapter, it never says anything about the woman leaving. Okay, we're going to get into that a little later on. But there is a standard on why we should be married. But let's go into all the reasons why we just list. See, when you don't know self,
Yes.
the greatest success of any individual or product or thing is the wisdom of self. When you don't have the wisdom of self, you will relate to someone else
Yes.
for the cure of your loneliness.
That's so good.
When you don't have the wisdom of self, you will relate to someone else because something in the back of your mind says, there's something I'm supposed to be doing, because every human being comes to earth with a purpose trapped inside of them.
Yes.
And if they never get to that purpose, guess what we do? We create a subculture. And we dip beneath the standards of God, and we reduce our time on earth to a bunch of vacations, indulging in our desires,
Yes.
indulging with people that don't mean us well, indulging in things to cure our lonely time. But if that purpose is revealed,
Yes.
see, the only thing that fulfilled us, we've been lied to. Society says, because from the minute we were born, they taught us, once the Prince Charming comes along,
Yes.
what is the movie always says? They live happily ever after. But nobody ever told us about the story, what happens after the happily ever after. So, because we've been Cinderellaized in our mind, we adapted this culture. And we think that once these two have been locked in, then nothing but beauty comes out of it.
Yeah.
But I have something truthfully to say to you. Nothing, as much as your wife loves you, as much as your husband loves you, as much as your children love you and you love them, nothing can fulfill you but purpose. So you could be in a happily married, a happy, beautiful marriage and still have sadness and depression.
That is so true.
Why? Because there's no purpose in the home. You have a high zip code. You have tons of money in the account. Beautiful home, pool in the backyard, beautiful, healthy kids.
Yes.
But secretly, you know that there's something missing because you continued with the life that America told us about with the Joneses. So we have the Joneses standard, but we don't have God, and we don't have his purpose, and we don't have his mandate.
You know what I want to say too is, because just from some of the people we counsel in our own personal experience, that the world, I truly believe, taught us to go after those things.
Yes.
You know, does he have a good
The
job?
Jones syndrome.
Does he have this? Does he have that? You know, especially for women, and some, you know, some same for men. But what I've discovered in our marriage is that if you have purpose, all of those other things that you're seeking after and trying to find and get, you receive in your marriage with your partner, because there's purpose there. And you're moving towards the purpose that God has called you to do. The house come, the kids come, the car come, the everything that you desiring to want, that you initially go for, that you don't go seeking purpose for, you end up like getting. So it's almost like, for me in my experience, it's been guaranteed, because I joined life with you and you are my purpose partner, and we understood, like, when we got together what we were going to do together. It became a guarantee that all those other things were going to come. Versus if I would have looked for someone who had those other things in place, the man that had the great job with the house and all this other stuff, but there was no purpose there, like, it was an opposite, in the sense of, like, it could almost be like a guaranteed for failure, because of, and not that that's 100% across the board, but those things don't fulfill you, you know?
No, it's so well said, babe. Because here's the deal. Early on in my life, I got it wrong. Simply because one of the things we didn't mention is ignorance just in knowledge.
Oh, that's so good.
See, I grew up seeing my parents, and they did the best they could in a relationship, but they slept in separate bedrooms. There was no sense of purpose in their marriage other than for the doings of the children. And so I didn't have a healthy understanding on what marriage was. So the first time I started dating, I dated simply because I was attracted. And out of my attraction, but with ignorance, with no wisdom and no spiritual guidance to follow, I just went along with my feelings. But feelings are not facts. And so therefore, each relationship was a failed grade, simply because if I'm diving into something and if I don't know the truth and the reality and the success of it, then error is automatically going to be the outcome. And because I failed so much times, the crisis of my failure brought me to truth.
That's good.
The crisis of my failure brought me to truth. And I started to be mentored by great men like Papa Lovey and others who showed me the truth of what is the definition of a man. What is the definition of a husband? Because if I don't know, how can I be something and I don't know the definition of it?
That's so good.
We think the definition of a husband is to pick a wife. Okay, you guys have kids, you get this house, and boom, boom, boom. But that's not, it is incorrect. They said the man is the foundation. The husband is the foundation of the home. Right now in this building, you can't see the foundation. You can actually see the tiles and everything else, the walls, the roofs, the ceiling, but you can't see the foundation. Why? Because the foundation is literally holding everything together. So the husband is supposed to be the silent leader.
So good.
But we as men in this side society, we bully our women because society has told us that you are the leader of the home. So that means you do what I say, you do as I do. So it's a dictatorship. And it's the complete opposite of what God has said. You are the silent leader, meaning you create an atmosphere
that's so good.
in order for your family to be successful. Your job is to be the initiator of God in the home. Not only just financially, but also spiritually. No one is supposed to know more about God than the man. Because when Adam, the first man, God never spoke to Eve. God spoke to Adam. He gave Adam all of these instructions. You're made in my image and my likeness. Go work, take care of the garden, maximize, don't touch that tree. Then all of a sudden, God causes Adam to go in a deep sleep. Eve comes along. Then Adam makes this statement. But he only makes that statement after all of the instructions.
Okay, that's too good. That's a whole nother, the treatment. Like, what does it mean to be a husband? What does it mean to be a wife?
Okay, that's about another topic.
Diagnosing where people are right now, because I know some of our viewers, whether they're married or single or engaged, I know that this is something important to them, that they want to have a good and successful marriage.
Right.
So I feel like the biggest diagnosis with realizing if you got married for the wrong reasons is there purpose there?
Right.
Right? And is there any other ones that you want so that people can identify? Because we always say here on the treatment, it's for us to become better, right? In every area of our life. And so even if some of the viewers feel that they are married or not married, in that mindset of like, wow, all the reasons I was thinking about getting married, I need to go back and evaluate and think like, okay, were these the right reasons, you know?
Okay, no, you're good. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is truth. Mm-hmm. So you want to have the truth about what is marriage, what is my role as the participant in the marriage. Mm-hmm. You want to know the purpose of marriage, because marriage from a spiritual standpoint, the only reason or the nature of the reason why we get married is a joint venture on behalf of God. And that's what gives us fulfillment.
Yes.
It literally protect us from harm because we're so busy doing God's business, we don't realize that the person left the toilet sink up.
Yes.
See, the reason why we fight, evidence of consistent fighting is an absence of purpose.
Yes.
Because if you knew your purpose, you wouldn't fight about you left your pants on the floor again. Mm-hmm. See, this is all evidence that you don't have purpose in your life, because if you did, you won't sweat the small stuff.
That is so good and so true. How many times have we counseled people, even in the beginning of us being in a relationship, not fully discovering our full purpose of why we're going to be together and everything? I mean, I was nitpicking everything, you know? And the moment I got into purpose and I understood where we were going, I literally told myself, if it doesn't delay, destroy, or derail our purpose, I'm not going to bring it up.
Right. And so also, beautiful, thank you so much. I remember you saying that. And it was a huge shift. And also, I'm a neat guy, my wife, she's getting there.
Amen.
And so
we're getting there.
I remember making the decision when I proposed to you, I made a silent agreement with myself. See, because I want you guys to know this. We get into a relationship because of what we want.
Yes.
And this is the reason why our relationships are failing, because the inventor of love and relationship, God, he never said he loved us until he gave us something.
That's so true.
It says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. So meaning love is a giving vessel. So if you want to be successful, don't go into a relationship from a place of deficit, but go into it wanting to give. And in the richness of your giving, that person will understand the value of you and won't diminish your value.
That's so good.
So when I proposed to you, after all of the failed relationships I had, I said to you, I saw all of the things, and I said to myself, from this day forward, if I have to pick up after her the rest of my life, I will gladly do it, simply because I am here to give.
Wow.
That's what love does. And so...
Well, okay, so we've talked about the diagnosis. If you feel there's no purpose, if you feel that there's always arguing over certain things, that's a good indication. And then what was the last one you just said?
Identity of self. Because,
identity of self.
See, the reason why we would choose a partner that we know that we can do long term is because we don't value ourselves. And when there's no self-value, then we'll accept anything that will accept us.
Yes.
So we go beneath the standards in order to be successful.
Okay.
So we first have to know what is the truth of marriage. It's a joint venture with God, doing purpose. You have to know truth of self. I came to give. There's a purpose I need to give, and I'm giving in this joint venture.
Yes.
So it's not about me wanting financial gain. It is not about me wanting a child. It's not about me wanting to be married because I've reached a certain age. It's all about what is the purpose?
And we're going to talk about what the treatment is right after this break. So there's a difference between being poor and being broke.
These are generational truths that will leave a legacy for your family.
When you feel like you don't have anything, when you feel like I might as well end it, that's when he really showed up.
You are Christian, but you're afraid to buy a jet because people will say something. You're not spiritual.
Anyone that is experienced or that wants to be wealthy, they know that life is always evolving.
The Bible says money answers all things. Let's get this knowledge so we can have that money that will answer all things.
I looked at a building, I said, that could be my building. Before I got to a corner, a prophet calls me and says, God said, go back and anoint that place you saw, it's yours. I still own that building.
To be poor is a mindset.
The evidence that you have really fulfilled all spiritual righteousness, you're supposed to be rich.
Okay, so welcome back. On this part of the treatment, we're going to talk about the treatment.
So we've gone over
Yes.
all of the reasons why we get married. Sex, loneliness, age, finances,
Religious belief.
cultural and societal pressure. And now we've explained, obviously, that there is a standard on why the definition of marriage, where it came from.
Yes.
Who are we in order for us to be successful in marriage and all of the traps that are set. See, we have to come to the conclusion that man and woman, right?
Yes.
No matter how many ideas society, secular culture tried to come up with to try to create something that is adverse to this, there will be nothing more potent and more consistent and more healthy than two individuals in a contractual agreement bearing healthy children that will grow up in a place of love and acceptance, flowing with spiritual truth. But if we don't know those truths, see, God created love and relationships. So God doesn't give love, he is love. So he could only give what he is.
Yes.
So in order for you to give love, you first have to become it. How do we receive love in order for us to give it? See, some of us have went out into the world, and because of lack of parenting, lack of stimulation, lack of validation, we went out into the world and we wanted to get something.
So true.
And rather to give it. But in order for love to be successful, we first have to be whole. In order for that wholeness to then rest on the other individual. But if you come from a place of just wanting to receive, then the person can identify the parasite a mile away and they will exploit you because they know that you need something.
Yes.
So
the first treatment we want to give is wholeness.
Wholeness.
That's so good. You put
So
that so
in order for you to attract the great success in another individual that you want, you first have to be whole. If you want a 10, then you have to become a 10 person yourself. You can't be a 3, but then you want a 10. It's called unequally yoked. So if you want a fit, confident, spiritual, loving man or woman, then you have to become that also. How do we become that? You receive the love. See, God gives. But if we don't receive God's love, then we're still at a deficit. See, God will never be closer to you than he is right now, but it's your awareness of God that gives you value. See, I only can love when I know that I have been loved. God is loving us, but we're not receiving it.
Yes.
And when we receive his love, then that love flows through us and it causes us to have a sense of wholeness. You can't be a 3, but then you want a 10. If you really want to be a 10, then you have to become a 10 yourself. So, and a 10 starts with you not wanting something, but it starts with you understanding that there's something valuable that you have to give. So become a giver in your friendships, in your spiritual life, in your walk with your family.
Yes.
Become a giver. And once you become a giver, that attracts authenticity to you.
That's so good.
What's the next point we want to give them?
I just want to stay there because that was my journey. I mean, it is my journey,
Right.
you know? So
We both, yes.
yes,
Go
the
ahead.
moment you discover the wholeness that who you are and that love that God has for you,
Right.
you know, the elevation in your identity just increases.
Right.
You know, there's certain things that you just won't tolerate in your life.
Right.
There's certain things that you no longer do in your life.
Right.
And then the more you start to move in that direction, the more you start to attract the person that God has in alignment with your purpose. And I remember a funny side story. I met one of your friends and she sat down with me to do a financial plan. And after the financial plan, she was like, you know what? You're so amazing. You're so great. Like, how did you do it? And I thought she was talking about finances. So I started explaining. She's like, no, how did you get Van? She's like, because me and a few of my other friends were like all trying to get Van. He's such a good man. He's, you know, he's so well kept and all these different things. Like, how did you get him? And I was taken back from the question when I first heard it, but immediately I responded. I said, well, a good woman finds a good man. You know, and I just kind of left it at that. But even to what you're saying about being a 10 and attracting a 10, you know, there's certain places when you have developed that wholeness, that mindset that you find yourself, like maybe at a library instead of a club, you know, or maybe at, you know, events that are motivating and uplifting, or at church instead of, you know, other places. And so as you start to move in that direction, because now you're whole, you understand where you're going and your purpose. Now you start to move in that direction, and then you align yourself with the person that is on that same journey.
Perfect,
Yeah,
perfect.
so-
So beautiful. And so it's all about wholeness. And in wholeness, then now, one of the things, because wholeness doesn't mean perfection.
Yes.
I want to make sure that that's
come
clear.
on.
Wholeness does not mean perfection, but wholeness means your posture
Yes.
towards truth. So here's the thing. If I want to be successful, then I have to make sure that all of my history doesn't speak for me. The reason why we make certain decisions in terms of sex and money and all of these things that allow us to get into this contractual agreement, because there are past traumas speaking for us. Maybe we grew up in poverty. And because we grew up in poverty, we refuse to have that life circumstances. So therefore, we prefer to merge with someone who we don't particularly like, simply because we don't want to be in the crisis of poverty.
Yes.
But if you have wholeness, and if you know that this is a trauma, and you know that you are a solution to a problem on earth, and when you give us that solution, we will pay you for your troubles. You won't have to look, and you won't have to bend, and you won't have to go beneath the standards of God to choose something. Not that each person is beneath, but it's just not the right fit for where you're going.
Yes.
If you want truth, wholeness, unconditional love, then we can't choose someone that doesn't want those things, but just want a trophy wife or a trophy husband. Doesn't want to go to church. We want wholeness. We want a spiritual life, a spiritual family. But when you met him or her, They never set foot inside of a church. Now all of a sudden you want them to go to church. Wholeness, truth, wisdom, understanding. Diagnose your life, the past
Yes.
traumas, the people that raised you.
Yes.
And ask yourself this question: if they raised me, the unsuccessful parts of them, chances are I have those: unforgiveness, anger, aggression, dismissal, can't finish projects. All of these things are dangerous things that parents pass on to their children. And in order for us to be successful in relationships, we have to know what our deficits are.
Yeah.
I had to do that. I studied. I saw the things that my father did great, and I saw the things that he struggled with.
And that brings us to point number 2 of the treatment, which is always be willing to grow.
Yes.
You know, one of my mentors told me one time, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so always being willing to grow, as you continue to grow and evaluate and learn, you begin to just build upon that, you
Right.
know? And like you said, you've always had books and, you know, different classes. and
Not
different
always. I
things.
began.
Well, you began, yes.
After enough broken hearts, I said, let me stop. Let me go get wisdom.
Right?
So even crisis
Yes.
brings you to a place of wholeness.
Yes. That's
We'll
good.
continue.
That's
Go
good.
ahead.
No, and so even for myself, that happened. I remember when I met you, that was one of the biggest things that attracted me to you. And we spoke for 2 hours or something like that in the parking lot, talking about, you know, what does God want for us? I remember you were giving me relationship advice about what I should be
just
looking
met her,
for.
already
Yeah.
given her relation. But that was me. I was teaching
Yes.
even before I was qualified to teach.
Yes. So he's teaching me about what I should be looking for in a man, and you know what God says when a man is ready for marriage, and all of these different things. And so I know some of our viewers are like, what? But what I'm saying to all of that is that even after getting to know Van, I started to realize that there were so many times that we possibly ran into each other and didn't even know it, you know? And
Right.
so when you're in purpose, which is our third and last final point for the treatment,
Right.
is when you can truly identify certain things. Because even though we might have ran into each other, we wouldn't have been able to identify each other because we weren't in purpose
Right.
in those moments. But the moment we begin to seek purpose, it was like our eyes opened, you
Right.
know, and we were able to see each other and understand that, okay, this is someone that understands where I'm going, that wants to go where I'm going,
Right.
you know, and that can add to where I'm going.
Right.
And so,
And I want to say to those individuals, that is so good, babe. I want to say to those individuals who may have started
yes,
for not wrong, but all the ineffective reasons,
yes,
that it's never too late to get back the truth.
no,
There's absolutely nothing that can't be successful if you implement truth inside of it.
that's good.
So maybe you guys may have started because there was a child involved. Maybe you started for the sake of money. Maybe you started for a sense of loneliness. But if you guys sit with yourselves and ask the Father, what is it that we can do together in order for you to be glorified? See, we still could get back to purpose, because purpose, as long as you have breath in your lungs, there's something still that great God wants you to do.
yes,
And you can't busy your life with the accumulation of bills. So the question is not why did I get married? But the question really is, what am I or you attracted to?
wow, that is so good.
Sarita,
Wow. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Treatment.
wait.